Hey, what's going on, guys? Give it one sec here. There we go. Boom, boom. Perfect. Yeah. Okay, cool. Perfect. Okay, cool. Okay, so we'll wait a little bit to begin and then we'll go from there. I got this cool cup here. Boom. Today, kind of disattaches. Bam. And of course, glass, never in plastic, like I always say, like every single live. It's a little tough, but try to avoid drinking or eating anything out of plastic, okay? Your exposure to microplastics these days, I mean, it's probably impossible to get down to zero exposure to microplastics, but you can do a tremendous amount to decrease the amount of exposure you do get. And remember, these plastics, they have a lot of xenoestrogenic chemicals. And also on top of that, they build up as plaque in your arteries. So if you're kind of worried about, heart attacks and stuff of that sort, it could contribute to the plaque that's already being built there and thus increase your chances of having a heart attack or a stroke. And just some things I try to do, which are very easy, is obviously drinking always out of plastic or drinking always out of glass rather, and and stuff of that sort. And for my workout bottle, I have like a stainless steel bottle. I don't know where it is. Thought it was somewhere around here. But your basic stainless steel bottle that you can get from Amazon and stuff of that sort. So you guys, remember on these lives, I do cover a specific topic per live. But if you have any questions at all, feel free to interrupt me, stop, and then just ask. Even if I don't know the answer to it, I'll try to point you to some resources, and maybe it's a subject that I would be interested in investigating further as well. So feel free to ask any questions you may have. Let me try to work on the adjustments here. Yeah, feel free to ask any questions you may have, okay? And I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, cool. Okay. But today I wanted to talk about group training in general. It's very, very popular. You have like a bunch of companies that do this. I mean, there are like 1,005 different CrossFit companies, different ones individually owned. There's like, I don't know all of them, but there's like F45, and then there's Orange Theory, and I don't know if they're still around, but then there's also like Barry's Boot Camp, et cetera, et cetera. And they're very popular. A lot of people sign up for them. And one cool thing about them is the kind of social environment. It is a lot more social than, for example, working out on your own in the gym. You know what I mean? But today I'm going to talk about if it's a good idea to work out and a lot of the downsides of these group training classes. And a lot of people there, a lot of people that sign up for them may actually go there with kind of like serious health problems that they're trying to fix, or things of that sort, or maybe very stubborn excess body weight that's decreasing their self-esteem and stuff of that sort. And in my opinion, being a coach for already 20 years, I don't think it's the best option for most people, although the social dynamics of it and the price of it may incentivize people to jump in there. But I just don't think it's the best option for a lot of people, and I'm going to explain why here in particular, okay? And a lot of times it would provide like false hope for people as well, because they think if they're going to do these classes, they're going to, have like an amazing physique, like the guys in the magazines or the girls in the magazines, or get rid of their high blood pressure or high triglycerides or maybe high resting blood glucose levels, or just slim down quite a bit. And just know that the guys or girls with the amazing physiques, they never do these boot camps, so they never train that way. You know what I mean? Because those kind of workouts aren't going to produce that like aesthetic A+ physique. No, nor are they going to really optimize your performance or strength or speed, or your metabolic health markers or hormonal health markers. In fact, they'll probably disrupt your HPA regulation even more, because a lot of people are already in a very heightened state of adrenal fatigue before even going to these high intensity classes. And the last thing those people need to do, which most people are in that state already, is do high intensity training. Because you guys remember, working out takes energy, okay? It doesn't give you energy. It might give you a dopamine high And people confuse that with energy, but it doesn't give you energy. Just like driving a car takes gas, right? It's the same thing with putting a body to work. It takes a surplus of energy. You can't be in like an energy deficit and then work out and somehow create energy. It doesn't work that way. So if a person's already in heightened states of adrenal fatigue is a very vague, Kyle, what is going on? Adrenal fatigue is a very like vague phrase. It just means a state of burnout and exhaustion, excess cortisol production, which is then followed by, because your body's limited supply of cortisol production, then it follows by not producing it as much to preserve that limited resource, and then you kind of feel always tired, depressed, etc., etc. And you'll notice it's the case because always with chronic anxiety, if you guys have chronic anxiety issues, you'll notice if you stay in that chronic anxious state, depression always follows close behind. And this is basically when your HPA axis regulation gets disrupted. And then depression is just a counter to excess anxiety in a lot of cases to get you to stop doing whatever you're doing and kind of take a more sustainable, slow-paced approach to life so you don't burn yourself out even more. This is a complicated topic, but I don't want to diverge too much with the topic today. So here's the thing, just like I do with all my lives, the various aspects I'm going to mention about boot camps such as Orange Theory, F45, and why they aren't that great, they're in no specific order of importance, okay? So I'm just going to mention a couple things. It looks like we have 6 things to talk about today. And first and foremost, you guys, just so you understand, like when you first go to a healthcare provider, if it's your family doctor, if it's your personal trainer, if it's your psychologist or whatever, upon first meeting you, their initial assessment with you needs to be like 2 to 3 hours minimum, okay? That's really how long it takes to really get to know that specific person's situation and what in particular they're doing to cause health issue ABC. This is so critical, you guys, because if you're going into like your doctor's office and they're chatting with you, of course, if you have a paper cut, come on, use common sense. If you have a paper cut, that's a lot different, than obviously just, maybe spray some disinfectant on it and put a Band-Aid on it. But for like chronic health issues, like metabolic health being defined by your body fat percentage. So if your body fat percentage is too high, if your blood pressure is too high, if your resting blood glucose is too high, if your triglycerides are too high, if your HDL is too low, these are all metabolic health markers, and hormonal health markers are going to be like your total testosterone, estradiol, free testosterone, etc., etc. If you're having issues with these things, they're not age related, they're not genetic related. Maybe 1 out of every few thousand cases, it could be fully blamed on just really, really bad genetics. But they're really lifestyle and belief system related in a sense that there's some kind of mind virus that this person has embedded in their belief system that is leading to certain behaviors on a consistent enough basis that are leading to excess weight gain, high blood pressure, low testosterone, whatever, etc., anxiety, depression. And in a way, it needs to be changed at that level. So you need to change the person that's causing the disease, and the disease will go away. And obviously, to do this thorough assessment, and on top of that, take into consideration the person's spine health, movement competency, their digestive health, etc., all this stuff takes like 2 to 3 hours to assess. And in a sense that this stuff is extremely important if you want to come to a complete resolution of whatever symptom you're dealing with. But if you want to be on this kind of cyclical pattern of being on your doctor's or personal trainer's 401k plan or their BMW fund, as Paul Chek would say, then don't worry about doing any of the assessment stuff. Just worry about the symptoms, worry about the blood pressure and what medication you could be on instead of like the various behaviors that are leading you to your high blood pressure. Remember, high blood pressure, hypertension, too much tension in a person's life. You should work on decreasing the tension and living life more sustainably instead of suppressing that high blood pressure, in my opinion, with high blood pressure drugs, which in a long enough time frame definitely throw off your biochemistry a tremendous amount and cause various other issues. So you're going to be just in this cycle of being a pill popper your whole entire life. So this is very important. And if your healthcare provider isn't providing you with these thorough assessments, I personally would just run away as far as you can. Jeff, what is going on? Alden, Ezra, I had a few other people jump in here. Terry, Getty's in the house. Kyle, Lisa, good to see you guys. Okay, so you guys, the issues with group training that you want to look out for is there really is no thorough assessment. Chit-chatting with you for like 5 minutes when you first walk in and having you sign a waiver is not a thorough assessment. This is totally not acceptable. And if you get this kind of treatment or this kind of service, you need to call the person out on it or just go find a different provider, because it is not right to just have a quick Q&A chit chat with a person, sign a waiver, and then throw them into some high intensity workouts with 30 other people with a myriad of different other issues, etc., etc. Okay, Jeff, cool. Making a heart of palm salad and listening. Okay, I don't exactly know what that is, but it's good that you're eating whole food and it sounds like very healthy. I'm drinking some organic coffee right here today with this cool Russian cup I got. So guys, if you go into like boot camp class, CrossFit class, and again, they're just chatting with you for like 5 minutes and then kind of doing some stuff of this sort and then kind of throwing you in a class, dude, just run away, please. You guys deserve such better service. Even if they spend like maybe 1 or 2 minutes practicing some technique with you, like a deadlift, like in a CrossFit class, you know. So first of all, like mastering a deadlift, even a simple deadlift with a bar takes months, and including a back squat, okay? There's no way they can thoroughly instruct you in just like even an hour class on how to deadlift and barbell back squat correctly. Russian, Eastern European Olympians, Olympic lifters, which are the best in the world, first of all, practice these movements since childhood with like a stick, you know, like a broom, for example, like a wooden stick for a long time, even before they move on to barbells. And you're telling me somehow this coach in the group training class, which is not getting paid that much and basically has a weekend certification, is able to train you that kind of level of competency in like an hour course before throwing into a group training class? No freaking way. You guys, you deserve better, and you need to call people out on this. And to give you an example of how detailed these assessments need to be, like I studied Stuart McGill's work extensively, Paul Chek's work extensively. Their assessments are hours, spent hours just assessing a person's lower back. Stuart McGill's assessment usually takes around 3 hours to finish just to assess the lower back, okay? So you can imagine assessing also a person's lifestyle variables, you know, their digestive health, etc., their emotional health, how much burden they can handle at the time, etc., their schedule. All that stuff, James is in the house. All that stuff takes a tremendous amount of time. And again, sorry, I kind of go in all sorts of directions here. Sometimes I get heated a little bit on these topics because I remember when I had a serious back injury at the end of high school, I felt that's when you know you totally are alone, because healthcare providers are oftentimes very rushed. They spend like 5 minutes with you. A lot of them don't care. A lot of them can't care even if they do, because they got to get to the next patient, etc., etc. So you guys got to be careful and take care of yourself, okay? Because if something really serious happens, you will quickly see how ineffective the U.S. healthcare system is and how alone you will feel in the process and how expensive it is as well. Take note that 85% of personal bankruptcies in the U.S. now are due to health issues. 85% of bankruptcies is crazy, just due to health issues. Okay, but just to give you an idea, so even when assessing the lower back, let's say a person comes in to a training program, they're like, I have lower back pain. Okay, so just to assess this lower back pain, you have to sit down and talk with the person for like 30 minutes, 60 minutes, depending on their situation, to get to know their lifestyle demands thoroughly, okay? Are they sitting a lot? Or are they doing construction work? Or are they driving a lot, etc., etc.? All of this information will dictate part of the treatment program. Then you need to assess their movement patterns. If they are working out, you also need to spend a lot of time assessing how they're actually training, because 9 out of 10 times people just have terrible technique in the gym. So even if you successfully treat their lower back pain, the chances of them re-injuring their back is pretty much 100% within a 2 to 3 year period. And that's usually what happens with back pain patients, is they're in this revolving door of back pain. They injure their back, 3 to 4 months later, they don't have any more pain. Now, they confuse not having any pain with being healed. But what really happened is just the tissue around the disc has desensitized enough to not cause any pain, but yet the tissue is still very, very brittle. And thus any one wrong move, even standing up sometimes too quickly because of passive tissue creep after sitting down for too long, can throw out a person's back, or picking up a toothbrush that they dropped on the ground or something like that. That happens all the time. So it's important to thoroughly understand their lifestyle, then also take into consideration, how are they moving outside of the gym? How are they moving in the gym? Are they playing any sports? How are they moving during those sports activities, et cetera, et cetera. Then you need to test for their pain triggers. Are they flexion intolerant, torsion intolerant, traction intolerant? So to give you an idea, does their back hurt when they flex forward? Or does their back hurt when they extend? Or does their back hurt when they hang upside down? Or does their back hurt when they twist? Sometimes there's also a combination. Their back hurts when they twist and hang upside down, or twist and flex, or twist and extend, something of that sort. And it's going to vary from person to person a tremendous amount. And also there's a myriad of reasons why the person could have low back pain. Are they kind of older? And do they have stenosis, which is kind of common in an older population? Stenosis is basically narrowing of the spinal canal. And then unfortunately that narrowing kind of presses down on the spinal cord. And the pain could be anywhere from just annoying to intermittent to extreme, okay? It's all over the board, and it depends from person to person. That's why you need to thoroughly assess this person. Another issue is, maybe do they have a posterior lateral disc bulge on one level? Is it at the L5, S1? Is it at the L5 or L1, L2? There are 5 different discs, 5 levels to the lower back. Which level is it on? A lot of people have disc bulge at multiple levels. But to make it even trickier, sometimes only at one level it's causing pain, but not at another. So for example, if they get an MRI done and it's showing 2 disc bulges, let's say at the L2, L3, and L5, S1, it's common to go like, okay, both of these are causing you pain. But then if you do a mechanical assessment in person, you quickly see that it's just the L5, S1 that's causing them pain. So the treatment program is going to be way different, you know what I mean, than if both of those levels were causing them pain. And to make it even more complicated, a large percentage of people that do have disc bulges have no pain at all, So also, could it possibly be, instead of a posterior disc bulge or herniation, could it be an anterior? Is it poking out from the front? Like if you get in a car accident, that might happen, due to how the seatbelts work and stuff of that sort. That means that person won't be extension tolerant. So if they extend, it causes them pain because the dynamic disc bulge then pokes out this way. But if there is a disc herniation going to the back, when they flex, it pokes out and it causes them pain because it presses on the nerve, and they're oftentimes getting nerve pain. A lot of people think they're getting disc pain because the disc is injured, but they're not really having pain in their disc unless it's very late stages of disc pathology. During the very late stages, eventually the nerves do impregnate the disc material and cause pain in that area. That's basically your body's last-ditch attempt to get you to stop doing whatever you're doing. So it creates pain in that area because pain is your body's way of getting you to stop and thus increasing your chances of survival, hopefully. But a lot of people these days, unfortunately, are kind of knuckleheads. And when they have a lot of pain, they just drown themselves in medications instead of using that pain teacher and asking, what am I doing to cause this pain? And changing it there. So Lisa is asking a question. Will it be possible for you to have one of your live streams dedicated to low back pain and exercise? Yeah, I've already done many of them, Lisa, to low back pain. I will link it in the description so you can check it out. Because back pain is very, very common. Pretty much everyone is going to experience one serious case of back pain in their life. Hopefully just one, and then it'll go away and you guys won't have to be plagued with that. But again, if people are just educated on, pain triggers, how to create biological resilience in that area, how to lift properly, how to move properly, and how to eat properly as well, a lot of this back issues, pretty much 99% of it could be easily avoided. So, you guys, I'm going to move on to the next one, but just to give you a quick hint of the novelty that you experience when you run into people and the intricate nuance of even something like back pain. We're just talking about back pain, but remember, there are like shoulder pathologies, there are neck pathologies, there are hip pathologies, knee pathologies, ankle pathologies, etc., etc. And how is a person assessing this if they're chatting with you just for 5 minutes, having you sign a waiver and throwing you into a boot camp class with like 10 other people? It's so silly. You guys have to seek better service, okay? And stuff of that sort. It's so important. And again, thorough assessment upon first meeting you should take like 2 to 3 hours. For a fairly healthy individual, if they have like a bunch of other pathologies going on, like they're also on 10 to 15 different medical drugs, it's usually quite longer, okay? But this should be the standard practice, the bare minimum that you should get, all right? And the only reason people keep practicing this way is because you guys, the clients, are not asking for better, because obviously you don't have a better example, but hopefully after listening to stuff like this, you'll seek out better, more competent practitioners and more caring practitioners. Because if they care about you, they'll thoroughly try to understand everything about your life and what's leading to pathology XYZ so we can correct it from the root cause and stop playing these symptom management games of chasing one symptom after another your whole entire life and still looking and feeling worse year after year after year. Because symptom management doesn't work. Managing symptoms only yields more symptoms over time. Okay? So important. You guys, call people out that give you this silly, like, just sign a waiver and then get into the class. So another issue, the second one, so we talked about thorough injury assessment. What's their past injuries? Do they have any sensitized tissue currently, etc., etc.? Okay, Lisa is asking, will it be possible for you to have... Okay, I think that popped up again for some reason. Okay, that was weird. Okay, another, guys, is, look, what's a person's posture? This requires an assessment as well. Do they have upper cross syndrome, like shoulders rounding, head protruding? Do they have a flat back? Thus they're probably going to be compression intolerant. They're not going to be able to load their back quite well because that curvature in the spine, in your cervical, thoracic, and your lower back, those curves are meant to be like a shock absorber, right, for loading. But if a person has a flat back, it's going to be very tough for them to load heavy weights on their back without feeling pain or discomfort. And on top of that, they go into flexion quite easily, quite quickly. So if they have a flat back combined with, let's say, a posterior lateral disc bulge in the L1, L2, any one wrong move in flexion under load can herniate that disc even more, So you have to then maybe not load this person's back, or maybe through corrective exercise over time, just reestablish some type of curvature in their back to have a little bit more spring and absorption to the amount they can load, etc., etc. Does the person have scoliosis issues? Okay, because if they have that, there's only so much of that you can fix in some cases as well. Then you have to tailor the person's program to basically still accomplish the goal of what they're trying to accomplish, but kind of work around the limitations of their scoliosis, depending on what degree of scoliosis they have and then what type of scoliosis they have as well. So these are all important. There's also sway back. I mean, guys, there's so many postural deviations. A common one with computer programmers is like a shoulder hike. One shoulder is way higher than the other, okay? And you guys have to remember, your body has evolved, the musculature of your body has evolved just to basically help you navigate against gravity. You know what I mean? Help basically you move throughout the external world and survive better. And when you start kind of creating a postural deviation in one area, it creates a cascade of effect. It creates a cascade effect throughout your whole entire body, because if it's not corrected, you just simply end up falling over. So for example, when you have rounded shoulders and a rounded head, inevitably there's going to be a lot of tension on your entire posterior chain, because the whole entire back area of your body has to flex all day to some degree to keep you upright, because if it doesn't, you're already kind of slopped forward. You're just going to basically fall forward if it doesn't. So this creates then a lot of tension in that muscle, and it becomes brittle over time and kind of hypersensitive because it doesn't have time to recover. Where in a well-balanced posture, loads are distributed throughout the body evenly, okay? And thus no one tissue becomes too overburdened, especially when you combine that with good low-intensity dynamic movement throughout the day, all right? But when you combine that with static positions and poor postures, the tissue inevitably becomes quite brittle in certain areas and quite lax in other areas, so creating even more postural deviations. And then what happens with a lot of these group classes is then, once again, the quick 5-minute Q&A, waiver, let's get you in this class. Now, without even correcting all of that posture, they start loading the poor posture, thus reinforcing that poor posture even more, getting stronger in the wrong direction, and thus injury is much more likely to happen. And then on top of that, poor posture as well, just kind of basically gives you a more slouched, not as aesthetically appealing, not as confident as appealing physique as well. But this is very common. So again, you guys, with group training classes, boot camps, Orange Theory, F45, etc., etc. So remember, first and foremost, they have to be assessing you for injury background. That usually takes about 2 to 3 hours minimum. They have to do a postural assessment with you as well. Where are you? Do you have any postural deviations? That needs to be factored into the program as well, etc., etc. And all these things are critical to be able to avoid injuries. And you guys remember, so many times I get guys that are like overweight, beat up, 30 years older than they are, trying to convince me that they know what eating healthy is, or they know how to move properly, but yet somehow are on a bunch of medical drugs, somehow always in pain. This disc is blown out, now I have high blood pressure, etc., etc. It's important to kind of be realistic here. The human body and mind, or even the human mind, for example, human consciousness is like the number one mystery in the universe still. People, even the best scientists in the universe, don't even know why consciousness even exists. What's its evolutionary purpose, And a lot of people, they're so silly and so delusional oftentimes. They're like, will go, pay to get their car fixed because they don't know what to do with their car, but yet somehow know how to fix all their mental and physical health issues. And mental and physical health is exorbitantly more complicated than a freaking car. And it's pretty crazy, actually, but this is like so common. So the third thing is, a lot of these boot camp classes and stuff like that don't teach core integration. And it's so critical for injury prevention. Core integration is basically, you got to look at your core muscles, like all of the muscles in your midsection. You have a lot of them there. You have the internal oblique, external oblique, rectus abdominis, transverse abdominis, the psoas, the quadratus lumborum, the multifidi, okay? But also on top of all of those, and the multiple layers of the erector spinae muscles, but on top of all of those, you have to remember your core is actually also all of your kind of butt muscles, your pelvic floor muscles, and your lats, okay? Those are the big ones. More accurately stated, your core is your whole entire body. It's your ability to integrate your whole entire body into one movement and not have any weak links or any breaks in the chain. So breaks in the chain, for example, is like when you're doing a squat, for example, and you notice that certain muscles begin to give or just relax. That's the person's inability to integrate all of those muscles. It requires a lot of training and good program design to be able to, especially if a person is already injured, to be able to teach a person how to integrate their lats, all of those core muscles and all of those butt muscles into one unified muscle during a lift. So important, because that's what creates stability in your spine and hips. And again, no one is educating anyone in any of this. And if they don't have good stability in their spine and hips, they have movement inefficiency at that point. And also they just have instability in their spine, and thus far more likely to get injured outside of the gym, and especially in the gym as well. And again, this kind of goes hand in hand with assessing for injury history, assessing for posture. Then that would go into a movement screen. I spend a lot of time practicing movement with clients, okay, etc., etc. But that's so important, because integration of that muscle will also help create stability in your periphery joints, such as, like, for example, your shoulders, your neck, your knees, etc., etc. Unless it's like a direct injury to the knee or like the shoulder, a lot of those pathologies, like in the shoulder, in the knees, actually originate in the core, in pathologies and lack of movement efficiency in the core. And then they lead to certain movement patterns that over time, it takes a very long time, but it sneaks up on you eventually, that over time causes these orthopedic issues. And people focus on like the knee. I'm like, dude, it's like a core integration problem, lack of movement competency. Also, you guys have to remember that everything in your body is made out of food. So if you are eating sick animals and sick plants from these factory farms that are sprayed with God knows how many biocides that are not even tested for safety in the US as a complete formulation, you can't expect to be healthy eating sick animals and sick plants. No freaking way. And if you are some signs that you're not implementing nutritional practices correctly, or you're overweight, it takes a lot of effort to become overweight, and a lot of money. A lot of people don't realize how much money they need to spend on processed food, eating out, to become overweight. And to do this like month after month after month after month after month after month, year after year after year, take all the effort to go drive to these fast food places, take the effort to buy that processed food, etc., etc. And then the indirect cost of that is huge. It's gargantuous. The person's quality of life is so poor, and they're funding this. It costs a lot of money to sustain a 250-pound body with processed food. To give you an idea, like a bag of potato chips is like $5-6. Like, it takes 2 potatoes to make that bag of potato chips. Those 2 potatoes are like 50 cents, So to give you an idea of how much more expensive it is to eat to become overweight, it's gargantuously more expensive. And then you take into consideration, like I mentioned, 85% of personal bankruptcies in the US are due to health issues. The average American is spending, $8,000 to $16,000 on eating out and alcohol and all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, it's expensive, man. And people just don't see it until it's too late, or don't see it at all. So the fourth thing is, a lot of these boot camp style classes advertise kind of like more higher intensity training, but just know high intensity training, it's marketing gimmicky stuff. It's totally bogus. Like, nobody with an admirable physique, no strongmen, no Olympic champions train with this, like, do this exercise, go here, do this exercise, go here, jump over here, now get on the treadmill for 10 minutes. No one trains like this, dude, that has admirable physique or strength or athleticism. Nobody. This is like the silliest training possible. It's only marketable because people that don't know what to look for think that is what good training is. I never trained like that. I never trained any of my clients like that. You need to be taking long breaks in between sets, like 2 minutes minimum in between sets. Sometimes it needs to be like 4 minutes, 5 minutes long. If you look up strongmen, they're taking very long breaks in between sets. They're definitely not doing this silly circuit training. And all the guys with the great physiques, trust me, they are not training this way. Not in a million years. This is a very ineffective form of training. It's just done because it's easy to do in group environments. But if you go into these group classes, look how depleted everyone looks there. they don't have good muscle density. If they do have good muscle density, I guarantee you they had it before they came into those classes. And if anything, they're probably losing that muscle density the longer they're staying in those classes. Push the sled here, do some curls here, do some burpees there. Now, when your core stabilizers are all out of whack and you can't even breathe, now go do a barbell back squat and throw out your back, It's like so stupid. You guys, these training systems are so silly. They're very ineffective. Again, no Olympians are training this way. No pro bodybuilders that look amazing are training this way. No athletes are training this way. You have to understand too, like the average American is in already a heightened state of adrenal fatigue. Okay, their adrenal glands, which sit on top of their kidneys, have already been pumping out probably God knows how much cortisol for so many years, dealing with so much anxiety and micro and macro stressors on an almost weekly basis, that your body has a limited supply of that cortisol, and it's critical for alertness. But when it's constantly being pumped out, like it is for a lot of people, your body senses that it needs to stop producing it as much. So it basically shuts it off for the most part, okay? Not completely, because then you'll be in a completely zombie state. But a good indication that you're in late stages of adrenal fatigue is basically if you're already thinking about how exhausting it is to get up out of bed, you're not sleeping well, or you are sleeping well, but you still feel so exhausted throughout the day. You're even strategizing on how much energy it would take you to go walk downstairs to open your car to go to the grocery store, and if that's worth it. Sex drive is probably super low, etc., etc. All these things are indication of late stages of adrenal fatigue, okay? And it's usually people in this stage that are going into these high intensity workout classes. And you guys have to remember, working out takes energy. It doesn't give you energy. It gives you a dopamine high, which a lot of people confuse as energy, but it's not energy. You need to be in a surplus of energy to work out appropriately and safely, and also to be able to recover appropriately as well. Because remember, you're not going to be able to build muscle and lose body fat effectively if you're not well rested, okay? So there's that aspect. Remember, you need long breaks in between sets. This silly stuff of jumping from one exercise to another, pushing the sled here, pushing the sled back, avoid that stuff. If anyone has a good physique doing that, I guarantee you they're blasting gear. There's no way you can sustain good density muscle while training that way after your 30s. Not going to happen. There's also the aspect of how much time it takes to coach a person on proper lifting technique. Okay, like I told you with the Olympic lifts, Eastern European children spent years mastering just the barbell deadlift and back squat. Okay, how are they doing this? Just doing a quick 5-minute Q&A waiver and then maybe spending like a few seconds teaching you how to back squat. You know what I mean? There's no way. Also, don't fall for this like functional training BS. That's marketing bullshit. No such thing exists. If you want to functionally train, you go do the specific activity you're training for and use the gym only as a supplement to basically integrate your core and those muscles that I mentioned and train that core integration to help facilitate with the activity you're trying to become good at. So for example, a lot of people would say in these courses, they'll tell it like, oh, this is functional training, it's integrating your whole body. Okay, so first of all, like an office worker functional training is only applicable to the specific activity you're training for. What does an office worker need to deadlift 225 for reps, And on top of that, anything in a gym is synthetic. The bar itself is very synthetic. Nowhere in nature do you grip anything by a bar that narrow, especially, okay? And when you take that bar away, it changes the dynamic of the lift completely. Like, for example, go deadlift 135. That's like 45 on each side. It's probably pretty easy for a typical American male to do that's been in the gym for a little bit, However, go out in nature and try to lift up a 135-pound rock. It's a way different story. And the second you change the grip, it changes the dynamics of how your central nervous system interacts with that lift completely. Okay? So don't fall for this functional training BS. There is no such thing. And then on top of that, I guarantee you their program designs are terrible, not enough rest intervals in between, not doing any of this background assessment stuff at all, just kind of throwing people into the mix. And I can go on, but it's just typically poor program design. And just like as a background thing, I've been in this industry for like 20 years professionally, but really 40 years altogether, indirectly as well. And guys, typically the people that start the boot camp type of business model are like more money focused, and they're not competency focused. Like they don't really spend that much time educating themselves. They spend that more time learning how to run the business and get a lot of people in the door and training these larger group courses. And a lot of times, even when that business person that started that gym steps away and kind of focuses more on the business and they hire a coach, typically the coach they hire is just very new to the industry on top of that, and probably not paying them that well. So like really good coaches in the industry, I could tell you, are charging like in person like 175 to like $300 an hour. You know what I mean? And a lot of these coaches don't even coach. They assess you thoroughly in person, which is amazing. I mean, that's really where the knowledge is at. That's really where the good program design is at. But they don't like sit there and count reps and stuff like that. So the coaches you're finding that are still doing that, just from my observation, and there are no absolutes, I'm sure there's a very rare exception here and there, they're just like the least competent trainers. And I personally would not hire them at all. And you can see that they're incompetent because they're typically on their phone when they're coaching people. They're just kind of like more of like a rent-a-friend, you know? They're chatting with their clients the whole time. They don't have like a workout program set up. The client comes in and they're like, what do you want to train today? They ask the client what they want to train today. Like there's no program, nothing. And these are sure tell signs that it's just a rent-a-friend and the person's very incompetent or just doesn't care, you know, and stuff like that. So just some background for if you do seek out help, just know that in-person training, it's the Wild West, okay? You don't need any certifications to be an in-person trainer either, from my knowledge, anywhere, okay? You could even look this up on Google right now and you'll see, do I need to be legally certified to call myself a personal trainer or be a personal trainer in state XYZ? No, you don't. And that's it. So it's kind of, just know the barrier to entry is low typically. And again, typically the people that stay in that in-person circle are kind of like, from my experience, like very, very incompetent. Again, no absolutes. There are some in-person coaches that would run circles around me in every single aspect. But usually also they're charging, like I mentioned, 175 to like $300 an hour or more. Okay? And typically also not coaching. They're just assessing and then maybe kind of help show you a few things here and there, but then really you're just on your own. Okay. Yeah, that goes to point 5, you know, certifications. Don't be fooled by these certifications, guys. They mean nothing at the end of the day. You can get a lot of these certifications through an online course. The best thing you could do is just look for, like, does this person or does this course have like a gargantuous amount of testimonials? And can I reach out to these testimonials? Because you got to be careful. A lot of these group trading business coaches are kind of a little shady, and a lot of those testimonials aren't even theirs. I had a few actually coaches try to steal my testimonials, you know? Their clients couldn't get the results working with them, so they hired me. They got the results with me, but then I saw the pictures that even I took, you know, on this other coach's website. So you got to be careful there too. Basically, like the best course of action is like, do they have a tremendous amount of testimonials of people in my situation that succeeded? Am I able to reach out to these people? You know, credentials is good too, but it's kind of like more of a background thing because, you know, there are a tremendous amount of people with credentials that are incompetent as well. Are they on a bunch of podcasts? Are they authors? Um, have they had universities fund studies based off work in their books, et cetera, et cetera? All these things in and of itself don't mean anything, but when you start putting it all together, it gives you a clear picture of whether the person is competent or know what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So also, you guys, in terms of lifting technique, I mean, there are like four main things you have to master when lifting to not get injured. One is making sure you're keeping tension in the appropriate muscle group during the entire lift. That's so critical. Those breaks in tension, when that tension isn't in the muscle anymore, it goes to your joints, and that's how you get injured, or that's how you develop arthritis over time. There's no way people are keeping tension when doing these high intensity lifts and running over here, running over there, et cetera, et cetera. And then on top of that, in terms of how you structure a program, you have a person do the least stable movement first. So like in a leg day, you would have them do, like, for example, as an A1 movement, their primary lift, a barbell back squat. It's very unstable, it's also a tremendous amount of moving parts. You're basically using your whole entire body. Then for B1 and B2, the secondary exercise, you might have them do like a leg press and a leg curl. You see, it's very stationary because now they've already exhausted themselves on the A1 movement and they aren't able to stabilize as well. But you can continue the workout. You can just put them on stable platforms such as the leg press and the leg curl. And then for the C series exercise, you could have them do like a little bit of core work or something of that sort. That's how you structure a workout appropriately. Something of that sort. Not like you do these 5 million things as a circuit and you can't even breathe the entire time and you're not even well rested, but somehow you're going on to like a barbell back squat next time. Dude, you're asking for an injury. Trust me, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. Also, another thing, guys, it's like with a lot of these boot camps, they say like best boot camp or best rated coach in the city. Dude, this is like such bullshit. Like, ask them best rated based on what? What variables? Ask them who rated them, who gave them this rating. You will see their story will fall apart so quickly. It's bullshit. Like, they just put it on there and no one questions them on it. There's no such thing as like the best trainer in town. Best trainer in what? Like, what are you training people in? You know what I mean? They don't even specify what. It's like, what? Are you the best trainer, period, in like everything? It's so stupid. Guys, call these people out. It's so silly. Okay, and the sixth one is, again, you guys, a lot of people that go to these classes obviously go for results. You know what I mean? That's the main thing. And the thing is, it's with most people, they have like a shattered foundation. I wouldn't even say broken. I would say it's shattered in pieces. And by shattered, I mean they're working jobs they hate for a gargantuous amount of hours. They have a toxic relationship in their personal life, but also an internal toxic relationship with their internal life, with themselves, like a harsh internal critic. They have a huge toxic load, don't even know how to reduce the amount of chemical exposure in their body. They have metabolic health issues, hormonal health issues. They have a terrible muscle to fat ratio. They're terribly undertrained, et cetera, et cetera. Financial stress. They still think they are their thoughts, something like that, or they are their body, et cetera, et cetera. Their diet sucks even when they say they're eating healthy. I mean, it's such BS. How are you eating healthy and you still have metabolic health issues and you're 50 pounds overweight? How in the world does that happen? It doesn't. It's just there's either a form of dissociation or they're just naive or severe lack of education or something of that sort. It's just, unfortunately, again, like I mentioned many times, guys, mental and physical pathology has been so normalized in American culture. It's just totally normal to be like 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight on a couple of medical drugs and just hating your life. That's like the common theme. You know what I mean? And it's so normal, it's seen as common. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. It's actually mental and physical pathology 101. So, in a sense, when a person has such a shattered and broken foundation, it doesn't make sense to put them into these high intensity workouts because they are coming from a broken place. You know, their central nervous system is shot, it's exhausted. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense on putting them into these high intensity workouts. Also, their lack of movement competency, their injury history, digestive health issues. Remember, all 12 of the human systems are interconnected. So when one isn't functioning properly, that means all of them to a degree aren't functioning properly, because when one is going down, it kind of has a dragging down effect on everything else. You know what I mean? So all of this needs to be addressed, and none of it is addressed in any of these courses, in any of these boot camp classes. But it's critical. That's what real healthcare looks like. And unless a person is going there specifically just to socialize, and they actually want to get better, I just don't see how they would be able to, because all of this stuff and like a couple of other things that I haven't even mentioned are completely neglected in these programs. And don't take my word for it. Just go to any class and ask yourself, like, take a look around. They all look like very depleted, all the people there, or still continue to be overweight even after going there for so long. The sprinkle of people that happen to be in good shape, they're just probably in good shape even before they came to that class, and stuff of that sort. So the success rate is very, very low. I would say the only way that these courses work well for you is if you've already done all that other stuff I mentioned, and you're literally just going there to enjoy a group training course, like just the fun social aspect of being in a group, which I understand is totally legit. Then it would work for you. But if you're looking for like an actual resolution of your health goal, you need to be put through a thorough assessment and given a program that's specifically made for you. The only nutrition program, workout program, lifestyle program that is the best is one that is built out specifically for you. And that's it. Nature is a novelty generator, guys. It's so obvious, you know what I mean? So what's going to work for you might not work for someone else or this other guy, or might even hurt the other guy. You know what I mean? So the best program is one that is written out specifically for you. And to do that, you need to be put through a thorough assessment, okay? So if you're not getting that, don't be surprised then if you're not going to get the results either. All right, guys. Wishing you a good weekend. Wishing you all the best. Thank you for jumping in. Jeff, David, James in the house, Lisa, Jeff. I see a lot of other people. Ezra, Kyle. All right, guys. Have a good weekend, okay? Bye.